I've been gardening for about 10 years across 4 different properties. And one thing that I've always found is that my friends and family, they always make comments like, "You have such a green thumb, I wish I could do what you do." And I wanted to take a moment to encourage you that you can. And the biggest obstacle everybody always has is they say, "I can't do it because I don't have the perfect land." Well, I am here to tell you, I've had 4 different properties. Every property's been completely different, and none of them were perfect. And where I'm at now, I'm renting. The property that we have now, I don't think anybody would say this is definitely the property that you should homestead on if they took a look at it. Let me show you around. This is the front yard of our property. Again, we're renting, and this is the only property that we could find that would allow us to rent since we have a Great Dane mix. Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. So, looking at this property, you can see the front yard is completely sloped. There's not much here in the way of if you wanted to build a garden, because when you're renting, everything has to be temporary. You know that you're not going to rent here forever. So to even think about gardening in this space, it's just something that most people would pass instantly. Look at that slope. It's beautiful, it's peaceful, there's lots of birds, and we love it. Not necessarily suited for a garden. Now let's check out the backyard. Okay, so this is our backyard. Well, technically our side yard. It's hard to see, but it's a huge incline. Again, not extremely sloped, but definitely if you're trying to do something that is picturesque, you know, something worthwhile of posting on social media, it's kind of hard. And as you can see, as you get towards the back, look at that slope. The only flat part of our property is right there. So, this is about a 21-foot space from the house to the end of the hill, or I should say the beginning of the hill, and about a 60-foot run from the end of one corner of the house to the spot right here. I took the only flat land that is on this property and I built raised beds. I used grow bags. I did anything I could do that would allow me to have a garden bed. Now, I started with just these 3 right here. They were 4x8s, and I did extend them this year, so now they're 4x10s. And then I added the addition. I did have to get permission from my landlord first, but this little garden right here is completely temporary. It feeds my entire family as much as I can. It feeds the pollinators. It creates an ecosystem so that I don't have to do very much work. Now, I have owned 4 different gardens that I have used to provide for my family. And I've had the big picturesque garden that everybody on social media wants. And it's beautiful and it's lovely, but you don't need to have that. As you can see behind me, this, what we're using as a fence, is my chicken wire, or chicken netting. This is my Premier One poultry net that we use to raise our chickens. And we just use it as a fence. Again, this property isn't perfect. It's not even pretty for what most people would consider. It's very quiet, it's very secluded. We love it. But look, there's tons of fallen trees, and every time I turn around, there's stuff that I'm finding in the yard. Check this out. That's concrete bags. I don't know who left this stuff. We are slowly cleaning up the property, but we do believe in creating ecosystems, which makes gardening a lot easier. So I'm not in a hurry to make this a very manicured yard. But keeping that fringe, the wood line here, that's kind of wild, that's very important for your ecosystem. That's where all of your wildlife is going to live, And you need that wildlife to keep a good ecosystem balance so that you're not fighting the bad bugs alone. You're inviting all of those insects that live in your yard, or I should say your woodline, to come into your garden and help you fight those bugs. Well, technically they fight the bugs for you. I never spray. I never put down any type of insecticide or any type of chemical on my garden. I can just plant, water, and harvest. And I don't have issues with bugs. I mean, they are there. Just because I don't spray doesn't mean I'm never gonna have not have a pest problem. I definitely have pests in my yard or my garden, but the better beneficial insects, they take care of that for me. Hear those birds? They're out here all the time. They feed on insects all day long. I've got grasshoppers that help feed them. I've got spiders in my garden bed that are trapping insects. I see fireflies. And you don't think of firefly as a beneficial insect, but it is. Having the fireflies as an adult are beautiful, they're calm, and it's a very much a indicator that you have a great ecosystem. However, their larvae, that's what you're looking for. They lay their larvae in leaf mulch and in the soil, and they hunt, and they are great hunters. They go after your aphids and soft body insects that plague your garden. I've got lacewings that protect my garden for me. They're always out there hunting. We've got hoverflies. We've got all sorts of bugs. I'll put up a couple clips for you to see what I found in my garden. So this is not a very big space. I encourage you to go ahead and think about your space differently. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be large. I'll show you some of the things that we use in order to really maximize the space that we have and grow as much as we can. Right here you'll see I make use of 3 separate green stalks. Now this is going to allow you to grow up to, like this particular one has 30 pockets. So that's 30 different plants that you can grow in a 2-foot space. This is great for patios, small spaces, anybody who just wants to start out gardening, whether it's flowers or plants, these are perfect. And then if you come over here, you'll see I'm making use of a couple of different sizes of grow bags. Now these particular ones are from Epic Gardening, but you can get pretty much any grow bag. There's plenty of them online. Amazon sells them, and these are great containers. I use them right now for some of my medicinal herbs that won't fit in my medicinal bed. And these are all blackberries and raspberries. I did have 2 that didn't survive. So I'm going to use one for a Kajiri melon to grow up my fence. But this is a tour basically of my little garden. And in this very small space, I'm growing a large amount of food. It doesn't matter that my land isn't perfect. I'm working with the land that I have, and I'm working with my landlord. That is the number one thing. So again, I encourage you, work with what you have. If you have never had a large garden and this seems like something that is really overwhelming, start small. There's nothing wrong with that. Grab yourself a planter or 2 and just see what you can grow. If you want to start with herbs, those are very easy. Get your watering down so that you know when you overwater and how often you need to water. And really, that's the hardest thing to learn about gardening. The next thing that's hard to learn is when to harvest. So once you get those 2 things down, and that's really just trial and error, you're good to go. Don't let your fear stop you. Don't let the sense that you have to have the perfect land. I definitely don't have perfect land, as I showed you. I've got a Mary statue in my front yard. I've got, junk all in the tree lines of my yard that I have to pick up. I've got sloped land. This is a land that most people on social media isn't going to show you. And that's okay. I'm going to show you the good, the bad, the ugly. I'm going to show you my failures. I'm going to show you my successes, because I think that's what's encouraging. I think that is what we need to get over the fear that we can't do it. Gardening is not hard. Anything that you put your mind to, anything that you want to learn, just takes a little bit of practice. It takes a little bit of knowledge, and you practice it until it becomes a habit. And then everybody's going to assume you're a master. That's how you master any subject. So stick around and I will show you what I do to be successful at gardening. Again, I just want to encourage you that if gardening is something that you really want to do, go ahead and do it. Start small. See what is available for you in your community. I'm sure there's got to be an extension office or a gardener's club. Use Facebook and other social medias to find what is available for you. What kind of support group can you join? In our area alone, I think I happened to find somebody who does a book club about homesteading, and they read books about homesteading and then meet once a month. So there's got to be something in your area. Homesteading, gardening, canning, food preservation, all of those things are very popular now. It's not like it was 10 or 15 years ago where you're starting out trying to do this on your own and there's no resources for you. So find what support you can, whether it's online or something in your area, and go ahead and see if you can't make some friends. Gardening with a friend is so much easier and so much more fun and enjoyable than gardening by yourself. And the next tip that I would have for you, or suggestion I would have, I should say, would be to go ahead and start small. Do something that you feel is manageable for you. So if you means that you're going to be starting with just one raised bed or a couple of containers, do that. Instead of looking at your space and saying, I can't, start looking at it as, I really want to, I'm going to do it. So what can I do? For me, in our situation, we ended up having to rent. That wasn't ideal. So I looked at our space and said, well, I can't do anything with the garden and the front yard. The side yards, not the best. So I started with the backyard, and I took over a small portion of the flat land in the backyard. I started with 3 raised beds, and that really wasn't enough for my particular situation, because I try to raise enough food for my family and my children who now have their own family. And plus I would like some to give away to some of my neighbors and friends who don't have a garden. So I wanted more. And I asked the landlord. He said, sure, do whatever you need to do. I promised I would make all of my garden beds temporary. So I don't know if you saw, but we do make them out of old castle blocks and wood. So they're super easy. They're like Lego blocks to slide in and take apart. They're not going to be anything really hard for us to remove. Again, I'm using my fence to keep the deer out. I know it's not really tall enough, but for whatever reason, it's working. Just having that physical barrier has kept the deer out of our yard for a little over a year at this point. And yes, it can be electrified. That is our chicken net. But it's something that we can just pull up and take with us to our next property. And there's nothing in my garden space that is permanent. Everything can go with us, and the lane will return back to normal when we leave. Maybe you don't have that ability to have a huge garden like I have here, and all you have is a small patio. Well, that's good enough. Those green stock garden beds that I showed you that are over there, there's the green one. They take up 2 square feet. And there is so much that you can grow in those. I've seen people grow sweet potatoes. They grow flowers. I've got one full of nothing but strawberries. I'm growing celery in one. I've seen people grow cabbage in them. Now, you may not get as large like a cabbage or a pepper or whatever you're growing as if you were to put them into a raised bed where the root systems have plenty of room to spread out, but you can still grow them. Beans, I've grown beans in ours just fine. What else? A lot of my medicinal herbs that we use here on the homestead, I have started out growing in the green stalks, because there was a time I didn't have even this much flat land, and that's fine. So that's another tip. Let's be flexible. Give yourself some grace. If you start this garden and you mess up, say you can't figure out the watering and you kill your first plant. Use that as a lesson. Don't see that as something that is a failure. Everybody unalives a plant, unfortunately. It's a lesson. Now you know a little better how often you should water, how much you should water at each watering cycle. So just replant and keep going. There's so many tools at your disposal, and as long as you work on trying to develop a habit, just improve one skill at a time, which is watering. Start with watering. How often do I need to water to keep this herb or pepper or whatever you're growing alive? And then at that point, really kind of focus on feeding. How often do I need to feed? And make those, I call them processes, make those processes a habit for you, so that every Tuesday you're coming out and you're turning on your watering hose or standing there hand watering for about 10 minutes. Know that you're gonna have to do things at certain times. So get a calendar and mark it down so that you don't forget. It's not as hard as you think. Don't let any of your obstacles get in your way, because there's so many different ways to overcome any excuse that you could give yourself not to start. Gardening is definitely something that most people find enriching. It's very peaceful. It's very rewarding. It's nice to know that you can do something with your hands and produce something that is beneficial for you and your family. Whether you want to garden just to say you have a garden, or you want to truly homestead, it's completely up to you. But start small, work your way up if that's the type of mentality you need. Or you can be like me, and I said, this is what I want to do. I'm not going to take no for an answer. And I just fully jumped in. I made the biggest space. I did what I could do. And I have slowly learned that that's what works for me. I have to go full commitment, or I'm just not going to do it. I can do this, then you can do this. I work full time. I have a family to run. I've got animals that I have to keep. And the garden, for the most part, I do myself. My husband does come out from time to time. I don't have little kids that come and help. So, if you do, then that's just that much more that you can get the whole family involved, and that more resources that you can use to make sure that your garden is successful. But I encourage you, do what you can, and I can guarantee you that you're going to be surprised with what you end up with. Happy gardening.